It's everything. It's what separates us.
Hmm.
One, you have the relationship element of, developing relationships, from an investor perspective into taking out that time to essentially looking for. So not just sending them what a lot of groups do these days is, they'll take on, a client and then they'll use various different email drip campaigns and send them out hundreds of deals, within the first couple of weeks, hoping that they find a deal within those, 100 deals that they're, kind of presenting. We
Yeah.
take a different approach into, just developing more of a relationship in terms of understanding exactly what they're looking for.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Grow IT podcast. Your host here, Alessandro Cutri, joined today by none other than Maz Pawar, one of the founders and CEOs of SA Capital Partner, as well as a managing partner of multiple other different companies. This guy's got his hands on a lot of different
Mhm.
things. So we'll definitely have a fun episode this episode. We're going to be diving into a story, a little bit about what he does, and some interesting insights that he's seeing inside the market. So without further ado, man, I'll kind of just pass it over to you, my friend. If you don't mind just introducing yourself and telling the audience a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, join your podcast. So a little bit about me. Been in the banking space for 20 plus years now. Started with, being more on the commercial side of banking, and then got into boutique investment banking. Was a managing partner of a boutique investment banking group out of Chicago. Founded that business as well. And then from there, I was a part of a couple of other businesses that, primarily focused more on early stage, growth stage companies
Hmm.
that were seeking capital. But prior to that, it was more middle market companies and above.
Nice. And so did you always know that you wanted to start your own company? Was it something that you always wanted to do out of just say college, for example, or is it something that you naturally went into?
I think it was a little bit of both.
Hmm.
Coming out of college, I think everybody wants to be their own boss. I don't know if I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
even remotely close to ready to taking on that challenge.
yeah.
But as time progressed, and you get more exposure into, the field that you're in, and you start to, you know, learn a little bit more and know the basic, block and tackle, and as you kind of evolve within your profession, then it, was a natural. A natural transition into, owning my own company at one point.
Definitely, definitely. And so you've been a part of this space now for a little bit here. And so I'm curious to get your take. Like, what are some of the trends that you're noticing, in the market from just speaking with different companies and just being inside here?
Yeah, I mean, I think, because we primarily, especially at Deal Insider, we primarily focus on early stage, growth stage companies
Yeah.
that are seeking capital. And, I would say the last couple of years have been pretty tough, primarily because the risk tolerance wasn't was pretty high. And a lot of growth stage investors were kind of waiting to see what's going on. The election played a big role into, everything. And obviously coming out of COVID, we bounced back, but not completely. So there's a lot of optimism going into 2025, from an investor perspective, in terms of a lot of, investors are seeing some,
Yeah.
optimism coming into the new year. So we're definitely seeing a positive direction going into the new year.
Yeah. What is it that's making you say that? Like, have you like had some recent conversations with folks, or like how have you kind of seen that shift unfold?
I think the biggest thing is, investors are far more, interactive. They're
Uh-huh.
reaching out to us,
Oh
to
wow.
getting deal flow, as opposed to, the last couple of years have been pretty tough, where we would have to, bang on a
Yeah.
lot of doors to, get them to come to the table. But, at the moment, it just seems like there's a lot more optimism from that
Interesting.
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's super neat. And so for I know you touched on a little bit earlier, but for the audience that's maybe tuning in, they've never heard of kind of, what you guys are doing over at SA Capital Partners and maybe even, Deal Insider Capital. If you don't mind
Mhm.
just, giving, the audience just a real, maybe better understanding of kind of what you guys really specialize in.
Yeah, I mean, the primary specialty is, we are a liaison between growth stage investors
Mhm.
and early stage growth stage companies
Yeah.
between the two firms, regardless of, where your company is. We
Yeah.
primarily focus in terms of getting in front of the growth stage investors.
Yeah.
Um, with the, larger institutionals, whether it's a larger private equity group or a larger VC, um, they have those departments already built in where they're
Yeah.
profiling and targeting certain companies. But with a lot of
Yeah.
growth stage investors, and when I mean growth stage investors, I mean smaller family offices, smaller
Yeah.
private
Yeah.
equity groups, your some of your angels, they don't have that bandwidth to navigate through a lot of deals.
Mm.
So, with Deal Insider, we took a very innovative approach in terms of essentially, um, using our in-house AI system to help us profile. So
Yeah.
we essentially work with on both sides of the coins in terms of working with these growth stage investors into truly understanding what they're looking for. It's not
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
simple as looking at, okay, here's a investor, they invest into a certain industry. It doesn't work. It's not that simple. So,
Yeah.
we spend a lot of time in terms of understanding their investment criteria, their investment considerations, their investment thesis, taking a look at some of their portfolio companies. So
Hmm.
we try to build out a profile based upon exactly what they're trying to look for, and based upon that, we target those types of companies.
Interesting. Yeah, and so it seems like you guys are fairly sophisticated when it comes to the outreach and kind of what you guys are doing in that
Mhm.
sense. And we get a lot of founders and CEOs that tune in that are looking to be a little bit more hands-on with, the types of, outreach that they're doing or how to, get in, front of those folks. What have been some, I know you mentioned, you guys are doing a lot of stuff in-house. Like what have been some things that have, really been helping you guys, right? In terms of, doing this outreach and finding the right folks and targeting them and getting into those conversations.
I think the biggest thing that's worked for us is we don't have that model where you know we work with any sort of type of investment group or target any sort of type of early stage growth stage company. It's a very targeted approach.
Hmm.
It's a model that we can't take on hundreds of deals out on at one time. We're
Yeah.
very selective with who we choose to work with, and we try to minimize our risk profile in terms of the types of clients that we work with. And one of the things that we always tell clients is that, even, in terms of how we operate, we take a very low fee, upfront comparatively to, other, types of companies that are very similar that are out there. So we try to align our goals with our clients' goals. And, the
Yeah.
goal is ultimately bringing an investor to come across the finish line, because that's really where we make our money. And, obviously that's what our clients are looking for as well. So, by aligning our goals with our clients, it kind of, puts us on the same team, if you will.
Yeah. And those are the best types of relationships to have, right? Obviously, where there's
Mhm.
working towards a common goal in that sense. You know, what's the vision for you guys? Like next, 12 months, 24 months as you guys continue to grow, like what are you guys looking to build over here?
Well, I think the biggest goal is just becoming an industry leader in this space.
Yeah.
In terms of dealing with growth stage businesses, it's the largest sector out there, but it is definitely the most underserviced. Primarily a lot of early stage growth stage companies, they go down the crowdfunding route,
Hmm.
which is it's not a bad route to go down, but in most instances, it's very saturated. It's good for small dollar amounts, but in terms of clients that are seeking larger amounts of money, it's hard to get that through crowdfunding, and going down the boutique investment banking route is also a very difficult route because it's the barrier to entry. They charge pretty large upfront retainers, and a lot of growth stage companies, early stage growth stage companies, are bootstrapped, so they can't incur those types of costs, that
Yeah.
early on in the in the process.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I could, and to your point, right? It's all about figuring out win-wins, right? How can
Mhm.
you, partner with someone and align those incentives and, be able to say, hey, when you guys win, we win, right? So that we have our best interest in helping you guys win as well, right?
Mhm.
And creating those types of partnerships is what ultimately people want, right? And it reverses risk, right? It helps in that case in just establishing those relationships.
Yeah, no,
No.
I 100% agree. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so when it comes to building relationships, right? Because we always talk about that, and you guys are in a really a space where relationships are the name of the game, right? In terms of that itself, I feel like a lot of people will try to say that, oh, like, we want to go down, and you guys obviously are leveraging a lot of, AI and kind of what you do, and, being able to reach out to these folks. But how important would you say building relationships are within, your business and this within your space that you guys are in?
Uh, it's everything. It's what separates us.
Mhm.
One, you have the relationship element of, developing relationships, from an investor perspective, into taking out that time to, really understand the types of deals that they're essentially looking for. So not just sending them, what a lot of groups do these days is, they'll take on, a client, and then they'll use various different email drip campaigns and send them out hundreds of deals, within the first couple of weeks, hoping that they find a deal within those, 100 deals that they're, kind of presenting. We
Yeah.
take a different approach into, just developing more of a relationship in terms of understanding, exactly what they're looking for. On the flip side, in terms of, clients that we work with, it's also developing that relationship, because the goal is always, working with early stage, growth stage companies, is that
Yeah.
as they continue to grow, they're going to have additional capital raising needs or M&A types of needs. And, our hopes is that they continually come back to us for those needs. So we're not just looking to, work with clients on a one-off basis, but, in a best case scenario is, we work with them, for the next 10 to 20 years, as they
Yeah.
grow their business.
Definitely, definitely. And if you had to, I'm curious to get your perspective because you've been in business now for a little bit, and I'm sure you've had some bumps and bruises along the way, right?
Hmm.
When it's never smooth sailing.
Of
Anybody who
course.
owns a business knows that. If you had to go back and you could, talk to your, younger self, right, that maybe had just, started a business, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I think, and, a lot of us, where you look at the younger version of yourself, the one thing as you kind of grow older is that you're more patient. And patience is just so important in business. Yeah, you want to be a risk taker, you want to take calculated risks, but on the same end, you should have patience,
Yeah,
and, sometimes, and I see this with a lot of younger entrepreneurs, they get a little, uh, they want things to happen right away, and sometimes it doesn't take, it doesn't happen, right away. So when they execute or implement a new, business model or a new plan, they want results right away, and, in some instances it does take some time. So I think patience is something that it's very important, in terms of running your own business and, really seeing things through. Whether it's, making operational or business changes, or even, working with, your employees, or, things of that nature. You just got to be a lot more patient.
yeah, I think that's great advice, man. I think that's one of the things that think every entrepreneur kind of struggles with at some point in their
Hmm.
career, right? Where they want things to move faster and they're maybe change things too early on. And it's something that, I went through as well, right? And then you have to realize that nothing great is built overnight, right? There's no
Exactly.
great business that is just, you know, um, built within 2 to 3 months to even a year, right? Big businesses take years to build, right? And to
Yeah.
establish yourself and to, build up a clientele and to, know almost get your IP, right? Establish your IP as an organization. And so I think what you're saying is one of the things that I always remind myself of is be impatient with action, right? And be patient with the outcome and the result,
Hmm.
right? You obviously want to
Hmm.
have that urgency that you're driving things forward, you're making things happen, you're stepping in the right direction, but also always remembering that it's that good things take time to build, right? And
Yeah.
it's not you can't rush the process, you can't rush it, right? It's not something that you can just shortcut.
No, no.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I promise you, when you look at, most people, when they look at that business plan, that first business plan, what their business looks like in year 5, 10, and, it's completely different. And that's
yeah,
any business. You're
yeah,
gonna evolve, you're gonna make changes, you're gonna have failures, but, it's not, letting the failures, you know, take you down, but it's just learning
yeah,
from those mistakes, and, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
pivoting and making those adjustments.
yeah. And you touched on something really good there, right? When it comes to just learning and like learning from your failures and being able to have that patience. And I think half the battle when it comes to maybe even a little bit more than half the battle when it comes to building a business is like your overall mindset, right? And kind of what your outlook on the world is, or even the outlook on business is. Like what mindset has really served you well as you continue to build businesses and you're a part of multiple things. I know you touched on some things earlier, but I'm curious if you have any other insights that have helped you along your career.
About that. Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that when I think about that's necessary, in terms of having your own business, organization is very important. It's very important to be organized.
Yeah,
It's really important to have a strong team
yeah,
behind you as well. Because one person could only do so much. And those are some of the things that as you grow your business, having the right personnel with you, you know, is essentially what the business turns into,
yeah,
So, it's being able to, have your pulse on everything, but on the same note, realizing there's only so much you could do. So you have to learn at some point to trust your employees in order to grow and
yeah,
do multiple things. But it's from my perspective, it starts just with being very organized. You got to be on top of what it is
yeah,
you're part of. I know some people, I am a very anal person when it comes to my emails. I cannot let stand, looking on my phone and there's 1,000 or 2,000 emails that are unread. That drives
yeah,
me crazy. So,
yeah, yeah,
I always make it a point that, at some point, obviously it's not practical on a daily basis to do that when you're doing a lot of things. But at some point during the week, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start to clean some of those emails out and, you know, just stay on top of that.
definitely, man. Yeah, and I think that's one of the best advice I think I got from one of my business mentors was in the beginning, right? Like as you're building the business, you are the business, right? Like you
Mhm.
was before you don't have any employees and you're just kind of running it yourself. And then as you start to grow and as you start to expand and you start to bring more and more people in, right? The business should ideally become a reflection of you, right? And like reflect your organization, right? Your values, your processes, and obviously what you've established there. So it all starts with that fundamental piece where it's like if you don't have that organization element, right? Everything else is going to fall suit because your organization is usually only as good as you are at some point, especially early on, right? So having that piece, I love that you bring that up. Maz, it's been a pleasure, man, getting the chance to hear a little bit more about your store, what you guys are building over there. Definitely sounds like something special. And I love that. I love your approach about it. If people are listening to this, they want to reach out to you, they want to get in contact with you or your team. What are the best ways to go ahead and find you guys?
Yeah, you could find us on, obviously dealinsider.net. I think, go to the website. You could fill out a form. Somebody will get in touch with you pretty quickly. If you're, a mid-sized company, then you could reach out to us via sacapitalpartnersllc.com. We're on all social media platforms, Instagram, YouTube, um, yeah, TikTok,
Awesome.
we're
Yeah, yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
So you could easily find us.
Perfect. Well, I'll make sure to include those links in the description so people can go check out. If you guys didn't make it all the way to the end, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Go check out Moz and the team and what they're doing. We hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, my friend, for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
No, thank you. I enjoyed my time with you, and I've seen some of your videos, and I think you're doing some really good stuff out there. In terms of just educating people, and a lot of people, I'm sure, have a lot of questions that are addressed with a lot of the podcasts that you're doing. So, good job
Well, I
on that.
appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. Well, thanks for coming on again, man.
All right, take care.